Most organizations decorate for belonging. Few architect for it. And leaders tend to assume a certain order where performance is put first and then belonging is added after. But the research is pretty darn clear. It shows that belonging is an incredibly important factor because it drives persistence through challenging times. It allows resilience to get through the tough shifts when you feel that you belong to the mission. It tends to reduce burnout, lower turnover. People don't quit bad jobs. They quit jobs where they feel like they don't belong, like they're replaceable at any point in time. And you want to kill motivation? Oh, yeah. Make somebody feel replaceable. It's even worse than someone who feels incompetent but also feels like they belong. When you feel like you don't belong to the tribe, that's a pretty rough go. Now, there's ways to architect this into systems. For example, I was my department's training manager, and I was a range master, so I taught all the firearms training for the police officers. There was one ironclad rule we had on the range. There was not one range master, there were 20. In other words, everyone on the range became a range master who could call a halt to training for any reason at any time. Everyone would honor it. Things would stop immediately. We would assess the situation, whatever it happened to be, make the corrections necessary, and move forward. And this was even true if a halt was called to the training that didn't necessarily need to happen. Somebody misperceived something. No problem. We'd far rather have the person misperceive and call a halt than underreact to a situation and not say anything at all. This is how you avoid catastrophes. So that's an example of where we have a culture of belonging and an empowerment to a certain level, irregardless of rank. In other words, everybody's equal in that situation. We're all on the same page. That creates psychological safety where we allow belonging. And it's really important to do that so we can stabilize under pressure. This is a key to it now. Because without it, belonging will fracture when stakes rise. And stakes always rise eventually. So the more that we have these systems in place and a high pressure situation starts to occur, the more everyone's empowered to take that leadership role within that moment. Belonging isn't really about a feeling. It's structural, it's architectural. It is the walls that bear the load when crisis comes. And it's often in hidden systems. It's not necessarily apparent to the people outside of those systems. And a cornerstone of it is accountability without shame. In other words, if there's an error that takes place in that level of belonging accountability, it's not a problem, it's data. And we can look at that and make changes to the architecture of it at any point in time without any shame or blame. So decisions are always flowing toward expertise and observation rather than hierarchy alone. When that kind of architecture is in place, it becomes an organizational infrastructure. It is systemic, and that is so important because even if a charismatic leader who's driven the organization for years leaves, it doesn't matter. It continues because it is a structural part of the organization. If the budget shrinks, it doesn't matter. We've got the system in place. Evidence of this can be found in a number of different modalities and organizational structures. For example, Toyota, where everyone on the assembly line at any point in time can pull a cord and stop production for any reason they deem necessary. It's about the surgical team that will halt a procedure right in the middle because a nurse has noticed a red flag. It's about salaries being published transparently instead of negotiated in secret. Everyone has a sense of belonging to the culture, again, regardless of where they fall within the ranks of those organizations. True belonging definitely needs edges. It definitely needs boundaries. And if we have endless tolerance for these things being stretched and whatnot, when the pressure comes, we're going to fall apart. That's why most organizations tend to decorate for belonging rather than build it as an architecture. I'm Roger Ruge, the Chief Resilience Officer for Pathfinder Resilience, and I don't believe cultures of excellence are accidentally created. I believe they're architected.